Hi, good afternoon everybody. It's Manda coming at you from Oudtshoorn, Little Karoo, Western Cape, South Africa. It's daylight as you can see, which is a change, but the power is cutting again at 6 till 8:30 p.m. and since we are GMT2 plus, that should give you an idea if you want to coordinate that with your time zone. And well, the joys of living in South Africa, isn't it? So I've been asked quite a few questions about why do we have power cuts. Well, that's like hunting for the mythological unicorn. You know, these legends, these myths, these stories, these probably once upon a time been some animal born with a horn and looked like a horse and probably had a horny growth out of its forehead. But be that as it may, South Africa's power is like the mythical unicorn. Lots of politics, not going to discuss it. The bare bones facts, and for those of you that are truly interested in the situation in South Africa, I suggest you get onto Google and go and look up the lovely situation there. But basically, pre-1994 there was a certain system in place, and post-1994 a different system came in place. And after 1994 it was felt that there was an awful lot of disparity and unfairness and so on and so on, and so a lot of changes took place in the job market situation and that sort of thing, and a whole lot of experts that were experts in their field then were offered choices to either take an early retirement, retrenchment, whatever. But there was this massive knowledge drain from South Africa, and then there was this it was felt by the government at the time that correctional system should be put in place which would equalize what they felt was a high pressure towards a low pressure point. And so various people were appointed at various posts, and some of these people did not have the experience that, or the qualifications for that matter, that the ones that were already in those posts had, and things started falling apart. And from, I can remember back in 1994, obviously, because being 54, I can do that. And so it's been years where systems have slowly gone backwards. And South Africa being a land of immense sunshine, there's these vast dry areas in this land and so on. There has been a move towards solar power and these things, but it's not the norm. It's not the norm. And lately, I suppose in the last 5 years, not so far back as 10, I don't think, maybe about 10 years ago, there started being a movement towards putting, and these were privately owned people who would do things, and then if you go and check the news, who owns what company, then you go and find politics get involved again, so not discussing that. But our current situation is because there's been an awful lot of funds that were mislaid or misspent or misdirected or not called into accounting, and upkeep wasn't done on systems which should have been upkept. And with the result is there is this rolling power cuts now, because the power stations, that's the state they're in. And so they call this load shedding in South Africa, and it basically means that, you know, this lot gets a turn and then that lot gets a turn and then this lot gets a turn. And so there's an app that's been made, and these guys alert us. And because there's quite a lot of crime, in South Africa, when it goes dark, guess who comes out? All the little cockroaches come out. And I myself was a victim last week, where some of our delightful local meth heads with their rather interesting patterns of behavior decided that they would also come and do a bit of affirmative shopping here. And so we're all subject to this, and I'm trying to rearrange my life and my schedules and my comms around when power's on, when power's off. Needless to say, people who don't live the way I do, I live a very minimalized life due to my own choices and circumstances, which sort of kicked in at the end of 2020 when I was officially retrenched. Well, the whole company was actually. And since then, I've sort of focused on urban survival. And during last year's process, believe it or not, I actually made myself, with the help of my partner, a shelter that was sort of weatherproof, self-draining if you consider the shade net floors with a cardboard underneath it, and I basically lived outside for a year, a bit more than a year, because the little studio apartment that I'm in, I own this property, but my son and his fiance was living indoors, and there's just no ways on earth I would actually put one of my children out for the sake of my comfort. I mean, that's just not going to fly. And so when my son in April this year decided to his situation changed, and he was able then to procure a place of his own, which meant I moved indoors after quite a while outside. So I had this lovely tree which I turned into a bathroom and showered underneath, and I lived and I learned to cope without electricity, or at least with like a single light and using solar power. Built myself a clay oven, you know, got on without an awful lot of things that people take for granted. So I'm a little bit ahead of everybody else in the sense that I'm used to doing without. I don't run 1,000 appliances. Well, they exist, but I don't use them, and so they're not plugged in, and so the thing is. But so South Africa, whew, your insurance rates are hectic because fridges get fried, you know, you have to have all these surge protectors on your electrical plugs and things, your geysers go, everything that makes hot water, that makes cold, things that people take for granted. It's a nightmare with electronics. I mean, if you forget to unplug your computers, if you forget to unplug things and literally not have it near these things, when these surges come through, then, well, you know, hard drives go, power supplies go, lots of things go. They just go, but they never come back, you see, and there's nobody that actually does any restitution unless you have personal insurance to ensure that you do. So South Africa currently, there are 8 stages of load shedding, and depending on the severity of the current problem experienced by Eskom, which is the company that is in charge of the electrical grid, they post on their sites and they will release things, this has happened and that has happened, but it is a little bit like playing eeny, meeny, miny, moe. You never know what the truth is. You don't. And I don't. I haven't had a television set in my house for decades. I don't watch television. I don't follow news reports. If a particular item catches my interest, or it comes up on my feed, or, you know, I get an alert that this is interesting, or I'm interested, or somebody tells me about it, I certainly will research it. But in South Africa, it has become a little bit of the land of the gravy train, if you know what I mean. And there's violence everywhere, and ridiculous statements being made on the news. And I see some of these statements, and then I think, what on earth are they saying? As a writer, when I look at the structure of their sentences and what they are actually saying, if you understand English correctly and you understand language correctly, and the image that's portrayed to the world via the mouths of those that represent the rest of us that live here, I can but shake my head and either choose to cry or laugh, one of the two. I mean, it is just appalling, some of the things that are said and done. And basically, there does not seem to be a system of checks and balances. And so I've watched this go down over decades, and we do what we can. And but there's no countermeasures, even when people are caught red-handed, proven to be guilty. I might quote here some of the high-up politicians, and it's been advertised right across the world. It's been mediatized to death. I mean, then you will still find that there is no restitution being made. There is no justice. Things are covered up, things are swept under the carpet, things are politicized until, that's why I don't partake in politics. I just speak my truth. And my truth is I live in a tiny little house and I have solar power things on my windowsill, which I charge because candles are really pricey now in South Africa. And somebody's figured out a way to make them go from burning for 6 hours to 4 hours. Prices have risen beyond most people's basic needs, and since I myself don't earn an income, and that really is so, I'm one of those people. I live in a really poor area, and at night you can't actually by dark leave my gate, and it's just a regular old rusty fence thing. There's a gate there, and the guys will be here, which is my son and his friends. And you can't actually walk down to the local convenience store. And the reason for that is because there'll be a couple of gangs in the road. They walk with these fighting dogs. There's usually 4 or 5 of them, and they've got weapons with them made out of sticks or knives or whatever. And they're on the hunt. They're looking for trouble. And they walk past your houses. They've got their eyes on your houses. And if they see there's no movement, believe you me, you'll be getting a little visit. And so we have on the streets where the rubbish is supposed to be collected, there's certain areas where the rubbish gets collected at certain times during the week where we pay municipal fees, rates and taxes. And part of these fees that we pay in the area means that they have to take care of the sewage system and the rubbish removal and all this. And so each sort of suburban area has a specific day where they'll then come and pick up, and you put out all the bags, and then they're taken to a central point, usually somewhere on a street corner in your particular street. And then people who have no income descend on these rubbish bags, and they open them up and they harvest from them whatever they can find useful, or what they can sell, or what they can turn into money. And some of these people who are they're desperate, close the bags up and don't leave a mess behind. Other ones shred them. If you think you're putting out your rubbish the night before, well, believe you me, then the street dogs get them. And so what you will find the next morning is this beautiful garbage train going right down the street, and guess who'll be picking it up? Not the services that you pay for. You'll be doing that. So we have that situation, which is a weekly thing, and the roaming gangs and the people that are on drugs that use, in South Africa it's called tik, and it's meth, crystal meth, I think they smoke that. And so you have an awful lot of this addicts, and they roam, and there's an awful lot of unemployed people, and people are desperate. And so now people who do have homes, but like in this area where I live, this was a area that was funded by the municipality, and when there was a time back in the 60s when there was some white disadvantaged households for very old people, they built these tiny little bachelor places, and they semi-detached little houses. So I have a neighbour just on the other side of the wall there, and they basically consist out of a galley style kitchen, and there's a little bathroom, and then there's this one room, which behind me you can see my bed on the other side of the wall, and the other side of the wall is also the other side of the house. And there's 2 windows here, and there's a window in the kitchen, and there's a window in the bathroom. That's it. And there's a door. There's no back door, there's a front door, and that leads out onto a little area, a little stoep or porch, which is fenced in with security, welded security things, and I turned that into a little seating. So it's very much tiny house living. But we are targets for anything that can be sold, and especially things made out of metal. So if passers-by can look into your yard and they notice that there is maybe some gardening equipment, or you've got this in your garden or that in your garden, and they want it, well, if you think you're putting out your lovely wheelie bin full of trash in time for the trash collection to come, thing is, the trash can will be missing. I promise you it will be. There we have neighborhood watches where citizens, private citizens, get onto WhatsApp groups, and we sort of keep each other informed. And you'll notice on the apps that I've posted, where I post the timeout grids, so it'll there's a function there where you can click and it will take you to your street and connect you to the other people in your street. So if you're in trouble and it's in the dark, you can join up with the other street members and somehow alert them. The problem being that if you can't afford data, so I don't buy data, I have a fiber connection, so if the power goes down, it's down for me. Other people are more fortunate, they perhaps can afford to run generators. Other people have perhaps cellular plans, cell phone plans, and so they have access to data. I don't. So when I go dark, I go dark. And that's the reality of living here. And so you schedule what you do around what they decide, and you might get a push notification like at the last minute you've just gone from stage 4 to stage 8, and 1 minute you think everything is fine and you've got comms for about 3 hours still, and then they go, oops, no, we'll just be putting that off for 12 hours or 2 hours, or they'll change the schedule, or that. We don't know, but it plays havoc with everybody. So you can imagine if you're a business and you're trying to run a business, and with the fuel prices that's gone on in South Africa, everything has elevated so that people that were on the breadline or slightly below the breadline has had to make huge adjustments just to survive. And so it is a country where some people are still able to do what they do and do it well, and the people like me, who was retrenched 2 years ago, and I live literally by the grace of the universe and live extremely well. I have a roof over my head, I'm warm, I've got electricity, I can pay my rates and tax bill, and there's always food, and I can spend my time on my passion, which is writing and creating. So I'm extremely fortunate. There are many people that don't have homes. Yes, okay, so I lived outside for a year with, cardboard floors and that, but when the floods came, okay, I was ankle deep in the water, but my floors drained. Self-draining eco house, remember that one? But the people who had more than I did, well, their cars and their electronics were floating down the roadways in George, and then there's severe crashes. Like sometimes 1 minute the bank is going, and the next minute the bank just shuts down and goes, well, we're out of business. Too bad, so sad. So I'm quite exceptional in the sense that I don't participate in a lot of things. But basically the fact that monies that should have been spent, knowledge which should have been kept, and training which should have been done, upkeep which should have been done, all the should haves, well, we wonder where those are. And so that's just a little bit of background on that. I'm not complaining. This is simply a personal observation and answers to the many questions of the people I do communicate with across an incredible amount of time zones who take the time and trouble to actually speak with me, to give them a slight background of why, because I certainly can't explain to the hundreds of people I talk to. So personally, I mean one by one. So I'm just doing this in video form so you have a basic understanding. So people who don't have this kind of lifestyle that we do in South Africa, well, consider yourself lucky. And if you are in any way, you have a bone of urban survivalism in you, start to dig out those bones. You're going to be needing them because they are sure ramping it up lately. Recently heard that the president of our country was off to go and raise funds elsewhere. This has been done so many times it's quite boring. Needless to say, we wonder where those went, don't we? And so, but like I say, I don't discuss politics, but the facts are all out there on the media, really. If you're really that interested, do a little bit of research and you will find enough articles that you can certainly raise some awareness about. But that is the realities. We're shutting down. It's 17:43 at the minute, so I've got 17 minutes of power left. Then the grid will shut down for our area until 8:30, and then another schedule will kick in, etc, etc, etc. So if my laptop and all my devices survives it past the next bunch of power surges, I'll be speaking to you soon. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for all the good wishes as well. Thank you also for all the smiles that I got sent and the beautiful art and music and songs, and I truly appreciate it. I really do. You guys have yourself an absolutely fabulous day wherever you are. And if you have an extra smile, go along and share it with somebody who doesn't have one. I'm sure they need it. Be blessed. See you next time.